podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to your post-match RAW, podcasting to you from my field here in beautiful weather event Ireland. I'm Trev Downey, and joining me to give their immediate reactions to Liverpool 2, Manchester United 2 in the Premier League from Anfield are Dave Hendrick and Hari Seth. I nearly forgot my own name there, Dave. That's how pissed off I am with that. And it seems like I've often said to you before, a little bit much when you are looking at a 6-point lead with a game in hand over the greats and wonderful Arsenal. But still, it sticks in the craw to lose to that lot at any time. It sticks in the craw to drop a point to that lot at any time. And the manner of the point drop today is what really does sort of irk me a bit. In the greater scheme of things, we're not idiots, we're not children, we're not throwing all our toys out of the pram. It's a great lead, etc., etc. We can do all the sensible chat, but this is raw, and I want to be annoyed at the moment.
Yeah, and I think we should be annoyed at the moment. There's many things to be annoyed about, and I think first and foremost, the result, which, you know, they're not a good team. They're not a good team. They're dreadful. And we've allowed them to come to Anfield and take a point. And I don't want to hear, you know, Gary Neville was fondling himself over Kobbie Mainoo, who wasn't even one of their 5 best players today. That result has nothing to do with them and everything to do with us shooting ourselves in the foot. And it's, you know, it's the second time this season we've done that, the first being the away game to Newcastle. And I feel like the manager made the same mistake both times, which is to not bring on Wataru Endo to see the game out once we got ahead. I feel like that was the change to make, because he'd made the attacking change and he'd gone with 4 forwards, and then we get the goal and we go ahead. And I thought that was the moment to just, you know, bring on a defensive midfielder, make yourself a bit more solid in the team, push Gravenberch a bit further forward, because he was having a lot of joy in between the lines when he was picking the ball up and turning and running at them. But he was struggling defensively. And we didn't do that. We didn't make that change. He waited too long to make changes. And when he still didn't bring on Endo. But by the time he made them, we needed to go and hunt another goal. We can be annoyed at that. We can be annoyed at a bunch of players. But I think, unfortunately, the focus of this is going to have to come down to the club vice-captain, who we know there's a lot of noise around him. There's a lot of speculation. There's all this talk about Real Madrid. Does he want to be at the club? Does he want to go to Real and play with his best mate, Jude? Ultimately, actions will always speak louder than words. He hasn't said a whole lot, but performances like that, and I just don't think the performance, because we forgive a lot as a fan base in terms of bad performances. Like, you can look at any number of players today who didn't play well, and you can say, okay, well, at least there's an effort level there. Like Robbo, for example, really poor performance, and we're going to get to some of the issues with him, but the effort is there. Diaz, really poor performance, but the effort is there. Curtis Jones, really poor performance, but the effort is there. Darwin came on. It looked like football was completely new to him, but the effort was there. But the effort wasn't there with Trent. The issue for me isn't even the performance, it's the attitude. Like, we forgive a lot of his defensive lapses because of what he offers on the ball. Well, today he offered a sum total of fuck all on the ball. He was terrible on the ball. And yet,
it reached a bit of an apogee on about the 50-51 minute mark, where he's just literally absent. You know, he fails to track Dallo, then he lets Dallo get the cross in, then then he plays a ball straight out to Martinez. It's absolutely atrocious stuff. Like, it's schoolboy shit.
But look at their goal. Look at their first goal. Gravenberch gives him the ball. He's got time to look up, pick his pass. If the pass isn't on, he can put it over the top for Mo to chase.
Yeah.
He plays a bad pass, gives the ball away. We shuffle back. Bruno Fernandes gets the ball. Martinez runs offside, comes back onside. Gravenberch comes across. Gravenberch is now picking up Bruno Fernandes. Gravenberch is the on-ball defender. Trent has one job now. Where's Martinez? And he doesn't even look at him. Has no awareness that the fella's there.
No.
And that summed it up. The bad decision on the ball, the bad execution of the pass, and then the complete lack of interest defensively. And we've seen Virgil scream and shout at defenders multiple times over the years for letting crosses come in. I haven't seen him as close to losing his temper.
No, it was a commentary. It was a constant commentary, wasn't it? Just endless.
Like, the thing is, as bad as Trent is on the ball, he was still orders of magnitude better on the ball than he was off the ball. Like, that is as bad as you ever see from a Liverpool player, particularly a homegrown academy lad in a game against our biggest rivals, in a title push, when you're the club vice captain. Like, Jesus Christ, lad, what the fuck? What was that?
It was difficult to watch at times, for sure. And it will, Harry, pretty much cement for an awful lot of people, won't it, their hot take on whether or not we should kick him out, or whether, we should absolutely stand by our own players, and they'll inevitably go and pick on someone else. And, it's all very infantile. We're allowed to talk about someone if they display a bad performance, and we're allowed to question the attitude if the attitude looks to be awry. And it's like, as Dave says, if someone's running around like a lunatic trying to make up for mistakes that they have made, you always forgive that. I mean, like, honest to Christ, Darwin Núñez looked like he won a raffle to play for Liverpool today. It was embarrassing to look at the lad. Andy Robbo's doing stuff in the last minute where you just go, have you ever played the game before? You idiot. You're pulling the shirt in front of a lino for 30 seconds and they get a late free kick. It's daft stuff. The guy had been charging around like a lunatic. Yes, I think he actually makes exactly the same mistake as he made on a previous goal again today, Robbo. But I don't feel like just hammering the shit out of him because he's doing his best. It's actually not Robbo's fault that he's constantly getting picked there. It's the fact that we have very little choice and the manager seems to prefer him over Tsimikas, and that's that. It's just difficult, isn't it, when the whole conversation feels like it's going to be hijacked, and that's why I want to get this talk out of the way early in our chat. I want to give you your go at it here. It feels like it is hijacking our ability to talk about this game, but it's a massive issue with the contract hanging around, with the, as Dave said, silence from the player himself.
Yeah, no, it's a huge issue. It's probably been the one. I mean, it has been the one kind of shadow that's been cast on this season, hasn't it? Otherwise, been really enjoyable to watch the way which Slots had us performing and the journey that we're on with this side. But the fact that these contracts, I mean, I'm not just including Trent in these here, obviously Virgil and Mo as well. The fact that they hadn't been resolved, I thought, and the fact that the managers continually had to, or the coach maybe is probably the better word here, has continually had to be trotted out. And had to charm his way around different questions on it every single press conference. I did wonder sort of how long that could go on. There's a different situation with Virgil and different situation with Mo, and everything that we've heard is that we're led to believe that they're going to be, the solutions will be found and they'll sign new deals. Virgil, perhaps the one where people are most confident of that. And we've seen from the performance levels as well, right, that there's been no reason to doubt them, to consider that their heads are anywhere else, for whatever reason that may be. And they both have spoken throughout this period. And I said a couple of days ago, I think when all the stuff around Trent came out, that in my opinion, I was speaking to Dave Davis actually, in my opinion, he wants it both ways, and he can't have it both ways, unfortunately. I think the silence from his camp on any of this stuff, I don't think it's a case of not wanting to distract from what's going on in the season. I think it's a deliberate tactic, in my opinion, in terms of sort of not wanting to comment on this it does appear that, again, it's speculation on our behalf, but there's enough smoke here that you would assume that he is his camp anyway making gestures towards Real Madrid and seeing what's possible. Today, I felt it was genuinely unprofessional in the sort of the performance level from Trent, and I think that's what you mentioned, Trev, about others giving their best, and perhaps on the other flank, what we're seeing is somebody give their best, but it's the decline of a player over many years, and so I do have sympathy there. It's a bit upsetting to see this guy make the same mistakes again and again, and actually us be punished for it. And if we're going to get this kind of performance level from the right back, then we very much need to see Kostas come in and get more game time. But yeah, unprofessional for me was the phrase that kept rattling around my head, just because of the manner of the mistakes and the fact that there was very little sort of sign that he was looking to make up for them. Also little in the way of contrition as well. Sometimes you see players holding up their hands. Okay, my bad, made a mistake on that one. Very, very little of that from Trent. And I agree with what Dave mentioned about Virgil. That's probably as close as you're going to see to him reprimanding a player, on the pitch. He does his captaincy in a different kind of way, and he leads by example. And I thought you could see, it's just got the oceans between them in terms of sort of the level of commitment from Van Dijk in that game, in different moments when he bailed us out time and time again. And I know. I think I spoke with Dave about this on the last pod, that Jules, it's a stat that Dave has some issues with. I don't think it tells the whole story, but I had seen sort of this stat going around that Trent didn't win a single one of them, like during 86 minutes whilst he's on the pitch. And Bradley, I think within a minute or so, had won one himself, just because of the way in which he approached the game when he came on. I thought it was pretty diabolical stuff. And unfortunately for him, this could be, let's say it's for any number of reasons that he put in this performance that was subpar. I think we've seen Trent put in quite a few subpar performances against United, to be honest, over the years. It's one of these games where he does seem to struggle a little bit at times. And I think we've questioned Trev in the past. Is it because he's too invested in it emotionally, whatever it might be? But unfortunately, because of his silence, because of what him and his camp may or may not be doing in terms of sort of running the contract down and the intention maybe to leave, he has opened himself up to be straight back into the position of a lightning rod, and he will receive a lot of criticism, and he will generate a lot of videos on Sky Sports and different platforms over the next week or so as people get to burrow into, is his head elsewhere? And that's exactly what we don't need as a side chasing down a title.
Oh, wait till you see the amount of body language experts coming out. I don't know. I was in absolute psychoticville today watching the match. I was changing between Optus and Sky and some other shower, and it was just flicking intermittently between them. I felt a bit mental at one stage, but whatever cameraman was on at the end was very much picking out the head down, leaving the pitch of Trent. And you use a word there that's, it's a big old sort of word to lob around, and I know you use it with caution, and you're not a guy who goes firing stuff around like that. So I want to bring you both in on the idea of unprofessional, only from this perspective. Now, we'll get to the incidents in the match, but this is what everybody's going to be talking about. So again, can we just preempt and do it here really quickly? I saw our pal Damo say, would you be as well off take whatever, I'm paraphrasing Damo, sorry, minimal fee, 20 or 30 or whatever you could get now in this window to get the guy sort of off the books. And now I think you would need a very able substitute ready to come in. I think there would have to be business done immediately. But I mean, if that is an indicator that actually we've been so lucky, you used the word unprofessional, Harry, and you're right. Look at how professional Virgil van Dijk and Mo Salah have been. I mean, absolutely. The lad on my stream at the end was talking about how Salah's thriving because he's not sure he's going to get a contract. Not infantile shite, he's just a good footballer. It's not because he's hungrier, he just. He's a model pro. So I just want to put that to you both. What's is there a fix here? Let's just assume worst case scenario that's indicative of where the lad's head's at now.
Yeah. What do you think? In my opinion, yeah, I think in my opinion, Trevor, it would be the coach needs to have a chat with the player, and I think it needs to be an honest conversation. And actually, I'd even include the captain in it. To be honest, I'd include the captain in it because I think he has his responsibility as well. Perhaps it's a bit too much to say that, but just have an honest conversation. You know, you're in the leadership group of this club. You're the vice captain. You can see what we're fighting for here on multiple fronts. They're crap. I think it's fine to emphasize that as well as sort of us blowing points against that kind of opposition. Where is your you basically need assurances from the player around the level of commitment he's going to bring to the games for the remainder of the season. And even if he gave it, it's hard to know whether or not how much you can take on that. Obviously, I think as you mentioned, a lot of it depends on for us to entertain that idea. We have to have had the replacements and the signings in place, and actually us understand that they're going to come in. I don't think we can let him go with nobody else coming in, even for the fee. So I think that'd be my approach. That the captain and the manager have a sit down with the player, just an honest conversation with him around sort of the commitment levels they expect for the remainder of the season, and see what happens, see what comes out of that, because the uncertainty and the lack of comment on the situation as well, unfortunately, it's going to eat away at him. Fans are going to play on it. Even the most charitable of fans are going to play on it. Rivals. Yeah,
it'll get into the atmosphere. It'll get into the crowd. You're dead right. It'll be like a little sort of virus eating away at the atmosphere in the crowd, and that's not good. Dave, like just on that, just your take on like what is the way to approach this now? Because it could get very toxic very quick. We have the other two lads doing exactly all you could ask of a professional footballer and playing out of their skins. And I'm not saying that Trent's been really bad. I'm not just going off one performance, but he hasn't been outstanding enough that you can say, well, look at him. He's not in the same category this season at all by level of performance. He's done some good stuff and some not so good stuff. And today was absolutely rank from an attitudinal point of view. So what about that? Well, we see the evidence. We see Virgil looks really fucking pissed off. I mean, could that possibly get a bit toxic quite quickly? And do we need to intervene now? Is there us, but does the club need to do something?
It is possible. It is possible that it gets very toxic.
This is MLS and U.S. soccer commentator Brian Dunseth here to tell you the only podcast you need to fulfill your weekly soccer needs. It's Week in the Tackle.
And I'm Tom Rennie. We'll talk the Premier League title race, the Champions League, MLS expansionism, and the ongoing disappointments of our respective teams. It's all on Week in the Tackle.
Didn't your West Ham just win a European trophy?
Ah, that night in Prague. Sorry, what were we talking about?
A Week in the Tackle available wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single episode.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. Ha. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes, and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
There's a level of entitlement with Trent that there isn't with the other two, Virgil and Mo. And I think part of that is the journeys they've had to get where they are. Like Virgil was told at 18 he wasn't good enough, had to, go to Groningen and prove himself. That's a third tier Dutch club. You've got the big three, Ajax, Feyenoord, and PSV, and then you've got sort of the Alkmaars and Twente's of the world that sit underneath them, and then you've got kind of all the rest. So he's not at one of the big clubs making his start. He doesn't get the big glamorous move earlier on. He has to go to Celtic, then he has to go to Southampton. He needs to prove his greatness that way, and then he earns the move to Liverpool. And you look at Mo and how Mo got here, and again, it's a roundabout path. It's coming through at not one of the big clubs in Egypt, going to Switzerland, having to prove himself there, goes to Chelsea, doesn't get the opportunities, he's deemed a flop, has to go to Italy and rebuild his career, and then he moves to Liverpool. Whereas Trent spent his entire career in one of the best clubs in the world, at one of the best academies in the world, promoted to the first team very early, straight line path, gets moved into a position to fast track him into the first team, and has never really been threatened in terms of the surety of his career from probably 16 onwards. He's known he was going to be a first team player at Liverpool. Now, look, much of that is down to his talent. He is an incredibly gifted footballer, but he hasn't had to work for it the same way Mo had to work for it, or Virgil. And one of the things I always looked at with that Klopp team, say the 2019 Champions League winning vintage under Jurgen Klopp, you had Joel Matip had a bit of a roundabout path to get to Schalke, Virgil, Andy Robertson, who at 18 was basically playing, as a semi-pro for Queen's Park and having to work a job. Fabinho had a roundabout path into football. Mo, Bobby and Sadio, all the same, like what they had to overcome to get to where they are. And I do think for them, there's more of a setting out to take it rather than waiting for it to be given mindset. And with Trent, I feel like he's probably waiting for it to be given to him now, because I think he's probably got an offer in hand from Real Madrid. And I think he's probably waiting for Liverpool to offer him something ridiculous, quite frankly.
What do you make of the reports from it actually came via Joyce, didn't it? The details about the 300 a week, 78 million. Was that officially leaked via one of the...
I don't know who... I saw that. I did see that. I can't remember who the journalist was, but like...
Oh, okay.
If we look at it, right, the high value positions in football, centre-back, you need a commanding centre-back, you need an elite level goal scorer, you need an elite goal creator, and you need an elite goalkeeper. They're the four things you've got to really put in place. Now, traditionally, those goal creators are attacking midfielders or wide players. Mo Salah happens to be an elite goal creator and an elite goal scorer, so he's a 2-for-1. Virgil's your elite central defender, and Ali's your elite goalkeeper. Then you'd be looking at defensive midfield. You might be looking at a midfield controller, a second centre-back, another winger. Fullback is generally the last position you spend money. Like if you've got a finite amount of money and you're, as Rafa would like to say, if you're trying to build a quilt that'll cover the whole bed, fullback is generally the last place you'll spend money. It's the area that you'll try and just get by. It's not somewhere you want to be paying 350 grand a week to. This lad is the only fullback on the planet that you'd even consider doing it to. But there has to be give and take with this. Like he has to be giving something back, and he just isn't. And for 2 years prior to this season, one of the continuing themes that we had about Trent and about this team in general was Trent's lack of defensive effort. In 22-23 and in 23-24, the lack of defensive effort from that fella was scary. It was an abomination, week after week. And on multiple occasions, we came on here and said that needs to be him dropped now for a couple of weeks because of the effort level, because of the lack of caring. But Jurgen never did it, because Jurgen mollycoddled him. I always thought when Jurgen named him vice captain, again, that was mollycoddling him. That was handing him something he hadn't yet earned.
Yeah.
Nobody could have looked at the team in the season before, the 22-23 season, right? Henderson is captain, Milner's vice captain. We know Milner's leaving, so there's going to be an opening for vice captain, and we know that's going to be Virgil. And when Henderson goes, Virgil's the automatic one to step in because he's proven himself. He's been the leader of this team since the day he walked in the door.
Like, yeah, he should have been captain all along.
He should have been captain from day one. And all the articles about someone else's leadership all started to become very positive only after Virgil arrived, never before he arrived. So we knew that. But then you were looking at the rest of the team and you're thinking, okay, well, if Henderson goes, who's the no-brainer choice as vice captain? And I think you would have looked at Alisson as the potential. He's vocal. He's clearly very popular. He's world-class performer. Andy Robertson, hugely popular, grafter. You'll never doubt. Like, he is turning up every single day. And it was the one thing you'd never have knocked about Henderson, is he would turn up and work. You would have looked at Fabinho if he'd stayed. Obviously, he didn't. And you would have looked at Mo.
Yeah.
And you would have thought, for pure excellence, for, the term model pro only ever gets thrown out about white English players. But if you want to look at a real model pro, you look at Mo Salah, who's 32 years of age and is in better nick than most lads 10 years younger than him. There's nobody in that squad that looks after themselves better than Mo. There's nobody in that squad that continually turns up and performs at the level Mo does. Even if you factor their best level being lower than Mo's best level, they're still not hitting their consistent best level as often as he's hitting his. So you were looking at him thinking, they're probably the three, Ali, Robbo, and Mo. One of them, that's your vice captain. Virgil's the captain.
Do you think offering it to Trent was a tactic to try and, like, by putting that responsibility on him, the hope would be that he'd rise to it? That he'd actually put in that level of commitment. I agree with you that I think Klopp was obviously more of sort of the coddling approach with Trent. Obviously, he's the local lad, but yeah, maybe it was even thinking about, okay, we're going to give you this responsibility now. You're in the leadership group. You need to raise your levels. Who knows? But he hasn't. I mean, it's only been this season that we've seen that level of commitment from him.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the thing, Harry. This season, the one thing that was really notable, I agree with Trent. With Trev. I don't think Trent's been great this season in terms of on the ball, but defensively, he'd been really, really locked in and giving a shit. And I was thrilled. I said, this is brilliant. And I said it on multiple podcasts, on here, on the Daily Red, on others that I went on. Like, yes, Virgil and Mo are openly saying we want to stay. He isn't. But when you watch him play, actions over words, the fella's putting in the effort. He looks really committed to this. And then there was the Fulham game. And we came on after that Fulham game. And Robbo obviously had a stinker and gotten sent off. And we were still laughing that Robbo probably wasn't the worst fullback in a Liverpool shirt on the day, because Trent's effort level was abysmal. And we just kind of pushed it away because up to that point it had been really good. But today was 10 times worse than Fulham. Like, that's an absolute horror show of a performance. And I do just think maybe he's been coddled a little bit too much. And maybe he's gotten a little bit too big for his boots. And I do wonder if maybe some of the senior players need to call a players-only meeting and sit him down and say, look, kid, we're trying to win a league title here. You're either all in or you're all the way fucking out. There is no in between here. If you're going to go, that's fair enough. That's not the point here. But if you're going to stay till the end of the season, you are going to give 100%, or you go home now and we don't want to see you again. Because all you are is a distraction and a liability. We can put up with you being a distraction if you're not a liability. In the same way they put up with Robertson being a liability, because he's never going to be a distraction. Because he'll always put in the shift.
Yeah, we would have probably preferred to be putting up with the occasional sort of mental lapse from Conor Bradley rather than
100%.
when you know the attitudinal thing is going to be absolutely.
If Conor Bradley's going to play, he's going to give you 100% every time. There will be times where he's just not good enough.
Yeah,
you excuse that because he's giving you the effort, and most of the time he will be good enough. But there will be games where the level is just a bit too high for him because he's just not of that ilk right now. Maybe he gets there, maybe he doesn't. The other fella, we know how great he can be, but he's got to put in the effort. I'm not being funny, but if you're Real Madrid and you're looking at that, if you're someone involved in decision-making at Real Madrid and you're watching that level of performance, would that not give you pause for thought? Because it really would with me. Now, maybe they'll look at it and say, well, it's because he wants to join us. He won't be like that for us. Well, lads, we have archives of footage that prove that this wasn't a one-off. Like, this is what he sometimes becomes when his head's not there.
Imagine if it goes as pear-shaped from there. They're a terrible set of lads. They get on you very quick in the business, We went today pretty strong, theoretically, with Konate back. I felt it was a difficult day for Konate because he was having to cut across an awful lot. And I wonder as well if Dom Szoboszlai's energy was maybe papering over a few cracks there as well that we hadn't noticed. But anyway, Konate having to cut across a lot straight back from a nasty injury. There was a lot on him today. Van Dijk alongside him was obviously excellent. Robertson started, and Gravenberch, McAllister and Jones were the trio in midfield. Again, we'll get back to it, but we may not. I thought Curtis struggled a bit today, I'll be honest. Gakpo, Diaz and Mo are obviously our attackers. Bench looks quite strong with Keller, Endo, Nunes, Chiesa. With the rumours I'm hearing about that, I don't know why that particular call. But anyway, Elliott, Jota, Tsimikas, Quansah and Bradley. United went today with Onana, the back three of De Ligt, Maguire and Martinez. They had Mazraoui and Dalot as sort of wing backs. Mainu and Ugarte were the big changes there for the two older lads. And to be fair, it made all the difference. I thought Ugarte was really outstanding today. And it's why I'm loath to do the usual thing that I would always do with this lot, because they have been rank all season. They actually weren't shite today. Fernandes played well, Ugarte played well, several of their defenders, Dalot and the likes, played well. You could argue we allowed them to, but anyway, they had Diallo, Fernandes and Højlund making up the rest of their team, and on their bench they had Binder, Xerxes, Malacia, Eriksson, Yoro, Garnacho, Casemiro and Collier. Michael Oliver refereed the game, and Harry, the first half started not very well for the man in question. He got mugged pretty early on up the field, Trent did. Then he got skinned by Dalot, but there was a nice recovery to win the ball back on 4 minutes. He's charging in towards goal with Dalot and takes the ball off his toe, and I think it's Ibu who completes the clearance. Was a half-decent ball in from Mo Salah on 6 minutes, a throw, a corner, nothing came from it. Our set piece is not exactly glorious again. 12 minutes was a Trent shot blocked and a Luis Diaz effort skied over the top pretty badly. Cody outside the foot poke narrowly wide after being played in by, I think, Luis Diaz. You'll have to forgive me and maybe help me out there. My stream went and the replay was non-existent, so I just saw the last part where we saw Cody with this sort of poke wide of the goal, and it's not quite narrowly wide. It seemed like a really good chance. I wish I'd seen more of it. On 15, Mo plays a ball into McAllister. It's a gorgeous pass, but McAllister's execution of his volley is perfect. It's a half volley rather. It bounces once, he hits it, and Onana's does well. He makes himself big, sticks the leg out, and it comes off the leg. It would have been an absolutely fantastic goal, and I think the game goes a different way if we get one in there at that stage. The corner that comes from that when we've just got our tails up is absolutely shite keeper fodder, nonsense. McAllister, I thought, was brilliant in those opening 20-25 minutes. There was an opportunity then for Ahmad, and we'll finish here, Harry, because this was the wake-up call. It's an absolutely open header from across by Dalot. Dalot had sprung the offside trap. We have no one around him. He runs into all the space in the world. He can shape the cross whatever the hell way he wants. He puts over a lovely ball, and Ahmad launches himself at it and somehow manages to defensively header it away from goal. It's an absolutely brilliant opportunity. It should have been buried. They should have been 1-0 up, and we should have got a kick in the arse a lot earlier. What did you make of those opening minutes culminating in that United chance?
Yeah, I was quite upset because I was hoping. I mean, I think we do have to apply at some point during this pod that as much as people, whenever anyone brings it up, I know that when Jurgen used to bring it up, we used to be annoyed about it. But like, let's just get out of the way that the weather was dreadful, and so perhaps you can excuse that for like why there wasn't a flaming like hot sort of start from Liverpool in terms of intensity, but that's what I was expecting and that's what I was hoping for, to have that kind of attitude coming out of the gates. Yes, they're 14th, but this is a Liverpool Man United game, and we've seen how those games have gone in the past when we haven't taken it that seriously and allowed things to drift, them to get confidence. So I thought the actual hesitancy in some of the passing was quite irritating to me. But again, we've seen that at points under Slot that the first half can be a little bit quieter, and then we figure things out. And second half is where we really ratchet it up, and we're almost a team like I remember in early Klopp days at times where we can have 20 to 30 minutes of really high level, and then we'll go back into this sort of some more conservative approach, like recycling the ball, whatever. But I was underwhelmed by how we started. I think given where that side has been. Yes, they were well set up today. I think we have to give credit to Amorim that he's not as god awful open like sort of tactically as Erik ten Hag was, and I think the humbling that they got against Newcastle I think definitely influenced some of the choices he made today in terms of Mainu and Ugarte. I thought played well today in midfield. So they were out of possession, but they were disciplined, hardworking. You could tell to me pretty early on. For whom it seemed like it was more important, and that's quite
the second ball. Sorry, the second balls were almost entirely United. That was very frustrating parts.
Second balls, but also like the duels. I think like as well. Like whenever there was a kind of like two or three players going for the ball and trying to dig it out, it always seemed to be them who emerged with it. To be honest, and that was quite irritating. And again, you can sort of allow that. In someone, not allow it, but you can understand it and go, okay, yeah, this is massive for them. They've been humiliated for weeks now. They need to put in a performance here. Maybe this could be like a springboard for them. But there were those chances, like you mentioned, Trev. The chance for Mac, the chance for Cody. I think it was actually Grav who stood him in for that chance as well. And I'm sure lots of our XG came from a couple of those chances in the first 25 or so minutes, because there were good chances. Mac, I thought, was the one who you could see even from the early offing, and it continued throughout the game, had that level of composure, was popping up in dangerous places. His passing seemed to be, sharp and sort of incisive as opposed to some of the rest of us, or the rest of them on the pitch rather. So yeah, he was shining from early on, but yeah, it was. I would say it was an attitude, but I was disappointed by how we weren't more intense. We weren't quicker in what we were trying to do, because I thought that what you saw was when there were those quick combinations between some players, or where we did sort of play a bit more of a direct pass into one of those runners, who's very often it was Mac. You could see that very quickly they were unsettled, and I completely agree with you, Trev. I think if that Mac chance, if he scuffs that and doesn't make as clean contact and it bobbles and it goes into the net and they concede early, that side is folding, in my opinion, just because of sort of what they have been through at Anfield in recent weeks, right? So, underwhelmed by the start in terms of sort of the actual manner of the performance and sort of the lack of running, to be honest, especially after a couple of them had a rest for quite a while. I was trying to use the weather as sort of context as to sort of why maybe they weren't on it from minute one. But what was worrying, and this is, I'll wrap it up here, Joe, was just around what a side like United needed if they were going to come and set up that defensively, and the ball's going to hold up in the turf, and things that are going to sort of help them out to sort of do this approach. The fact that they could get in down our right side and did so early on, that little bit of joy and that little bit of hope, it was always there for them, that there was a way to get at us. And that continued throughout the match. And I thought you could see they were growing with confidence every 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, it was one of the most frustrating parts, Dave, and it's where you extend the annoyance at the attitudinal nature across all of the players in many ways. Well, a lot of them did. Harry mentions there, every time there was a scramble with 2 or 3 foot-ins, they emerged with the ball. It was again and again and again. Obviously, we won some, but they won the majority. Attitudinally, they really, really were up for it. And that's kind of what I meant. It's easy on the back of how bad they've been to dismiss them as shite, but they actually got their shit together today in a way that's really annoying, because there's a lot of very good footballers there. And if you get Ugarte and Fernandes and Menu doing the business, and they did, like their attitude and their energy was great. Their defenders were front foot. The 2 flankers, specifically Dallo, were really, really good. And as Harry says, spotted a way of getting in quite early, and that saw that there was a ball in behind that they could exploit. And we've seen a couple of times today as well. All you need to do is just roll a ball across the box, and there's every chance you'll score from it against us at the moment, because enough of us aren't being dominant. And it's just, it felt like that was what was on display in the first half. And we were all probably quietly hanging on to the hope that, Arne Slot second half Reds and all that shot. But again, there was a huge amount of people, frankly, gobshites in the lead up to this, talking about how it was going to be about 9-0 and that they couldn't wait to embarrass United and this, that and the other. Okay, you take it on its merits, but how long have you been actually supporting the game and the club if that's what you think is going to happen every time United and Liverpool play?
Hey guys, it's Eddie Gibbs from Anfield Index here. I hope you're enjoying this podcast, and I'm sorry to call time on the show before it ends. In the current climate, it's tougher than ever before to offer podcasts for free. At Anfield Index, we produce over 75 free shows every month, which I'm confident is unparalleled in the LFC sphere. Whilst we'd love to offer everything for free, the production costs now make this impossible. That said, we don't want to follow the model of other channels and lock all of our content behind a paywall. So what we've decided to do is to continue offering every show for free, but cut that offering to 30 minutes on our longer shows. So to get all of our shows in full and enjoy the best of everything we have to offer, we really hope you'll consider supporting the channel and signing up at AnfieldIndexPro.com. For about the price of 1 cup of coffee, you'll get every podcast in full with 0 ads. You'll also get access to our LFC VIP community, where you can enjoy live podcasts, engage with our podcasters, and chat with other Reds in real time. So that website again, AnfieldIndexPro.com. Join today.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.